A golden rule in communication is that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Because at the end of the day, it's not what you say that counts, it's what the other person remembers that counts. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 7 tips to help you sound more professional and confident, and ultimately help you get your message across with impact. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jamie, a leadership coach and trainer, and author of the book, The Story Habit: How Leaders Shape Stories That Drive Action. In my videos, I talk about leadership tips for communicating, influencing, and boosting productivity. And if you're interested in learning more about the Story Habit, then you can download my free Story Habit Story Guide by clicking the link in the description below. And by the way, if you find this video insightful, a like and subscribe would really make a big difference to my day. Thank you, and enjoy the video. In the business world, time is precious. The longer it takes you to communicate your point, the less interested people will be. The challenge is that we're not always clear of what our point is ourselves. Sometimes we need to talk it through to get clear on what we're really trying to say. So I've got 2 tips for you. First, think. So what? Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Imagine being them and hearing your words. Then keep asking, so what? Until you finally uncover the key point. For example, imagine I am your employee and I say, I think the air conditioner is broken. So what? We need to fix the air conditioner. So what? Please could you approve $50 to fix the air conditioner? Okay. By challenging ourselves and constantly asking ourselves, so what, we can uncover the key point we really want to communicate. My second tip is to think CSN. CSN stands for conclusion, suggestion, and need. From my own experience of coaching leaders to communicate with impact, I have noticed that when they finally realize the point they want to express, their point is typically a conclusion or a suggestion or a need. For example, maybe your conclusion is, there's a recession coming and our business is not prepared. Or a suggestion, a recession is coming, so I suggest we find ways of cutting costs. Or a need, we need to find a cheaper office to cut costs in preparation for the recession. So there you go, 2 ways of cutting the fluff. Either ask yourself, so what, as many times as it takes to uncover your point, or clarify if what you're trying to say is a conclusion, a suggestion, or a need. And then just say your point. Being too negative. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that it's not what you say that counts, it's how you say it. And one clear example of this principle in practice is the use of negative language. For example, compare the 2 following phrases. We can't send you tomorrow. And the earliest we can send you is next Monday. Both of these sentences mean exactly the same thing. The difference is the second one has a much more positive focus and is therefore a lot more helpful to the other person. We can turn our language from negative to positive by changing the focus. For example, from what we can't do to what we can do, from costs to benefits, from problems to solutions. Or we can just use more positive sounding words, because different words have different emotional impacts. For example, listen to the following words and consider how they make you feel. Overtime, holiday, shopping. Now, everyone watching this is going to have a different reaction. Some of you hate overtime because it's stressful. Others will like it because you get overtime pay. Most of you probably love the word holiday, whereas those of you working on a holiday resort may get extra stressed during peak holiday season. And I can tell you, my wife loves shopping, but I hate shopping because it tends to involve me waiting for hours for my wife to finish trying on new clothes. So consider, how do you want the other person to feel? Do you want them to feel satisfied, excited, keen to work with you? Then focus on the positives and use positive language. But on the other hand, maybe you need to push people. Maybe you want them to feel that something is unacceptable, that they have to do better, or that things are urgent. In that case, you can use a negative focus and negative words to push them a bit more. Whatever words you choose them with purpose to create the impact you want to create. Speaking too fast. When we get really nervous, we have this really bad habit of speaking really, really fast. It's as if we just want to get this presentation over with as soon as possible, or we're terrified that if we slow down, then the audience will lose patience and walk out. And speaking fast creates all sorts of problems. We run out of breath, affecting our physiology and making us feel more nervous. We forget what we wanted to say, and we even run out of words to say. In fact, this is the very reason we use filler words, such as We use them because we are speaking faster than we think. Our brain hasn't caught up with our mouth, and we're still talking, just with no words to say. So all we can say is, So, slow down. And there are actually lots of benefits to slowing down. You'll feel calmer. You'll be less likely to forget what you say. And actually, you'll appear more confident in front of the audience. In fact, overall, it's really easy to speak slow. And it's much easier than speaking fast. You can already do it. The problem is, we forget. We get sucked into this nervous state and speak faster and faster and faster. The key is simply to remember. The moment you remember you need to speak slow, you can start to slow down. So a tip, write the word slow on your hand or on a post-it note somewhere where you can see when you're speaking. Then, as you are speaking, you'll see this reminder and you can start to slow down. Now, this won't work immediately. Sometimes you'll find it really hard to step out of that mental state. But over time, with enough reminders, this will seep into your awareness and you will remember more and more often to speak slower. Eventually, you'll find it comes naturally. Forgot what to say? There is nothing more awkward than standing in front of an audience and forgetting what to say. With all those eyes on you as you stand there panicking, it's a nightmare. You obviously don't want to forget what you were going to say. So how can you avoid that happening? Well, the key is to remember that the human memory is crap. Sorry, it just is. It's not designed to keep up with the demands of the modern world. There are too many things to process, too many distractions, and too many ancient bugs in our memory that just mean we forget things. Yes, it is possible to remember what you were going to say. And yes, some people have great memories. But you will be doing yourself a big favor if you just assume you're going to forget something important. So, don't depend on your own memory. Outsource it. We do this all the time, actually. We use smartphone apps, post-it notes, or even just rearrange furniture to jog our memory. You can and should use exactly the same principle when it comes to important presentations. Outsource your memory. And there are lots of ways of doing this, which I'm sure you're aware of. It could be simple post-it notes stuck on your computer screen. It could be words scribbled on your hand, or it could even be your PPT. Now, we shouldn't fill our PPT with text. That's how you put your audience off. But if you're going to be using a PPT, add a few key words, not full sentences, and key visuals like charts or photographs, and use these to jog your memory. This way, your PPT serves both you and the audience. So remember, you won't remember. Assume your memory will let you down because the chances are quite high. If you have something important to say, outsource your memory so you won't forget. Panicking. You've just finished your presentation at the annual budget planning meeting. You think you've made a great case for increasing your budget. The audience seemed pleased and you're feeling good. And as you got to close down your laptop, all of a sudden the vice president raises their hand. They've got a question. It's a question you've never even thought of. It's a question you don't have an answer for. You panic. Difficult questions are not uncommon. You should expect them, especially when giving important presentations. But the good news is you don't have to panic. There are ways of handling them. The key is to buy time to think. Now that could be just a few seconds, or it could even be weeks. For example, if you want just a few seconds to think, then a really simple strategy is to ask them to repeat themselves. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you say that again? as they're explaining their question again, you've now got time to think. Or if you need even longer, then just be honest about that. Explain that you don't have an answer to that right now. Maybe because you're waiting for more information to come in. Or maybe you can be honest and just say, I hadn't thought of that. Then make a commitment to go and find an answer and get back to them as soon as possible. If you have a genuinely good reason for not having an answer right now, they'll most likely accept that, especially if you commit to giving them an answer by a certain time. So remember, you don't need to panic. Just buy time to think. Either ask them to repeat their question or give a good reason and commit to answering their question at a later date. Too high level. One final thing to avoid if you want to sound professional and confident is speaking at too high a level. What do I mean by that exactly? Well, let me take that high level concept down to earth a bit with a few examples. Maybe you're hosting a town hall meeting and explaining the company's new strategy to all your staff. You explain that we're looking to create some efficiencies. But what do you mean by create some efficiencies? Give an example. Perhaps you're going to replace the CRM system with a newer one that works on mobile and doesn't take as long to enter customer information into. Maybe you're introducing one of your company's new devices to a customer and explaining that it has the fastest GPU on the market. But again, what do you mean by that? Maybe that customer doesn't have a clue what GPU means. So you show them. You open the device and run an app that the customer would use, then compare it to running that same app on a different device with an older GPU. Now they can see the difference. Whenever people ask, what do you mean by that? It means you're speaking at too high a level, at a conceptual level. So you need to ground your ideas, bring them back down to a level the audience can understand. Either you can use examples that really bring it to life, or literally show them so they can see for themselves. This is one of the main uses of storytelling in business, making things more meaningful. And there are lots of ways storytelling can help you bring more meaning to your work and communication, which, by the way, I talk about in my book, The Story Habit, which you can check out in the link in the description below. So we've looked at 7 things to avoid to help us speak more professionally and confidently, and what we can do instead. Which of those tips were your favorite? And do you have any other tips? I'd love to hear, so share in the comments below. I'll leave you there for now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great